Ben, facts don't care about your feelings, Shapiro. Is that true though, Ben? Because you and I both know that people are way more emotional than logical. Sure, they're capable of reason and logic, but they largely use feelings more than facts to navigate this world. We learned today how for most people it's feelings that don't care about the facts, and how we can use this to our advantage. When it comes to topics like atheism, the people in our audience, more than 95% of them have their minds made up. They're not looking to you to reason out their position, they're looking to you for talking points to defend the position that they already have, aka to rationalize them. He exploits it really well on this episode of the Daily Wire show called DEBUNK. This episode is called The Atheist Delusion. Oh, wait. There's this really popular atheist book called The God Delusion. Oh, I see what you did there. Very clever, very cheeky. We can look at how he uses feelings and not facts to convince people in his audience that they have been right all along. My name's Pranav. You're watching How to Deceive People on Science is Dope. Let's begin.
Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. I say facts don't care about your feelings.
We should talk first about the basics of human thought, because there's a flaw in how humans form conclusions out of what they observe, and this flaw is what we're going to exploit for the entire rest of the lesson. So we observe the world and conclude something based on a reason. For example, when people see a beautiful landscape, they might think that all this is a brilliant and artistic creation, and so it must have a creator. Right, so we have observation, reason, and conclusion. So isn't this how we're supposed to think? Okay, we might think we think this way, but actually we don't. Observation, reason, and conclusion. That seems like a natural way to think, that is going forward, aka reasoning. But this is not how we tend to think. We think backwards. We have already pre-decided conclusions, aka the beliefs which we form for emotional reasons, aka feelings. Like maybe a loved or trusted person in our life tells us something, and that forms our beliefs. And then we think of a reason to fit what we observe with what we believe. In other words, we rationalize or we think backwards. Our feelings don't care about the facts. We just need the right rationalizations, and that's what we're gonna hear from Ben soon. Neurologist Dr. Stephen Novella talks about how humans are belief machines, and this kind of rationalization is what leads to errors of thinking like logical fallacies or biases and stuff. Some people do think in a more evidence-guided mode of thinking, but most people think in this belief-guided mode of thinking. The tricky thing about our brain though is its ability to make rationalization feel like a process of reasoning. We strongly feel as though the conclusions we have are well reasoned out, and this little quirk is what we're going to exploit. I must say here that by feelings I don't mean sentiments, I mean emotions. But for now, if you are Ben, then all you need to give your followers are rationalizations why what they believe has been right all along. First things first, I'm listening to this video from an audio version which is available for free online. I don't have a subscription to his video content that's behind a paywall. Don't worry though, after this lesson, with the amount of followers you're gonna make, paywalls won't be a problem for you in the future.
Atheism, however, adamantly opposes the idea of a God who stands behind nature.
Now, if you've seen my previous lesson on Jordan Peterson, you already know how important this step is when it comes to debunking atheists. The fact is, atheists don't deny the existence of God or gods. There may be some that do, but the vast majority don't. All they say is they don't believe in a God, which is different from they deny the existence of God. But we're gonna strawman this position and claim that atheists say that there is no God, because this is a much easier position for us to debunk.
Atheism often claims that religion corrupts mankind.
If you want to make good people do wicked things, you'll need religion.
That the notion of a God blinds men to the truths around them. That science is directly opposed to the idea of a creator.
Do you give them an A at least for trying to reconcile faith and reason?
I don't think they're reconcilable.
None of these things are true.
That's right, just assert that it's not true. No evidence provided. Wait, he's saying more? Maybe he'll provide the evidence later. No, there's absolutely no evidence. He makes some statements about us needing some basic assumptions for any system of logic, but then all he does is assert that science doesn't tell us XYZ, only religion does. How does he just assert this and get away with it? If you know how people think, pulling this off is a piece of cake. I'll show you how it's done. People look at any statement that they hear in the context of the belief that they already have. So when you tell them anything that's already aligned with their belief, they won't scrutinize that much. They won't even look at the fact that you're not really providing any evidence or even a sufficient reason in support of your claim. They'll almost always accept what you're saying. This is part of their confirmation bias, a tendency to accept an idea if it's in favor of their belief and reject ideas that are against their belief. Given all this, all you have to do is appeal to their intuition, their gut feeling about things. Don't bother giving them any facts. Just look at this example.
This is sort of like the old joke about the philosopher and the turtle. The philosopher is asked, what supports the earth? And he says, a turtle. And somebody says, well, what supports the turtle? And he says, another turtle. So what about that one? He says, it's turtles all the way down. The infinite regress argument is just not convincing. There has to be something underlying the final turtle. There has to be one prime cause.
Great, infinite regress is just not convincing. That's why there has to be a prime cause, which is of course the god that they specifically worship. Don't provide any evidence against infinite regress. Just say that it makes no sense. Your fan base will just ignore the fact that we accept many things that make no intuitive sense, like quantum mechanics or the double slit experiment or gravitational lensing. But evidence points to them, so we accept them. The same way, why can't infinite regress be one of those things that make no sense but is definitely true? But guess who won't think this way? Your audience. They'll be convinced if you just say that it's not convincing enough. He does a similar thing again.
The Big Bang is the theory that holds that the universe began with the explosion outward of a high-density pinpoint of matter, which sounds an awful lot like the creation story at the beginning of the Bible.
How does an entire universe full of energy simply appear out of nothing?
The original skepticism of the Big Bang theory was driven in large measure by objections to that similarity.
Wait, I thought skepticism against the Big Bang had nothing to do with the Bible. Oh well, if we're giving them half-truths anyway, why not one lie? Now you might wonder, hey, if we give them these easily debunkable points, won't they be easily debunked by those bloody atheist debunkers? Oh, that's the next part of my lesson. You won't have to worry about them. I'll tell you why. What did I talk about in the previous section of this tutorial? Confirmation bias. See, the only people who will go looking for counters for the points that you raise are probably atheists. They probably don't even like your content anyway. Let them go looking for whatever counterpoint they want. What we wanna focus on are the people whose views are aligned with what you're saying. The people who are in your fan base because they're the ones who subscribe to your conservative platforms, watch your videos, buy your books, listen to your talks, etc. We just have to reinforce their views and we're good. Our financial and even our political interests are gonna stay green for as long as they're around. Now, I know what your next question is gonna be. What if they accidentally come across these videos and accidentally watch them? Won't they realize that this is pathetic, low quality, easily debunkable content? And my answer to this is no, that will never happen. First of all, they are shielded by the algorithm. The algorithm will never serve them content that's against their views, making them watching those videos even more unlikely. And even if they watch those videos, they'll find reasons themselves why the atheist is wrong, why they're just saying negative stuff because it's against their ideology. This is all thanks to confirmation bias. And hey, this is how human minds work. Either way, a win-win for you. Now let's get back to the video. Like we briefly covered in this video, when it comes to morality, all you have to do is assert that science can't account for morality.
The attempt to ignore moral right and wrong in favor of consequentialist outcomes, the greatest good for the greatest number, for example, has to assume something about what makes an outcome good or bad.
Science just deals with facts and not values. That is, it cannot tell us anything about moral values, which can only be derived from religion from God. How? And what about all the different gods and different religions that people believe? Also, these religions are only a couple of thousands of years old. Humanity is several 100,000 years old. So, did humans have no morality until religion showed us the way? Isn't it more likely that our sense of morality and justice are intrinsic among social animals? Only an atheist would have these skeptical questions and thoughts. Not your fan base. Just reinforce their beliefs and you're done.
Then there's the question of human consciousness.
Why are we conscious? Right now, nobody knows the answers.
Scientists have presented many theories about it, but none has been sufficient to explain how consciousness arises out of the physical processes of the brain.
Therefore, it must come from God, is what you must assert. And you must never let them even consider questions we had at one point. Questions like, why does water fall from the sky? Or what causes lightning? Or why does the sun rise in the east? All answered at one point by attributing it to God. But as science answered all these questions, these gaps in our knowledge that housed God grew smaller and smaller. Isn't consciousness another one of these questions that we haven't been able to answer yet? And so probably shouldn't be attributed to God unless we have a very good reason. That's another skeptical response only an atheist would give. Good thing this is not a debate, huh? Again, we need not worry about these questions, for your audience will never ask these. Just be confident in your assertions, and that conviction is what's gonna reinforce their beliefs.
Stephen Meyer, an intelligent design advocate, points out that the transmission of information via cellular processes looks an awful lot like an intelligent creator transmitting information.
In order to make it look like you have the unanimous word of experts with you, you have to quote them, but only quote the ones that are saying things that are readily aligned with what you're saying. This will add value to what you're saying and will make the viewer feel that much more reassured in what they believe.
Physicist Roger Penrose explains, quote, "We need a major revolution in our understanding of the physical world in order to accommodate consciousness." Even Richard Dawkins admits that the development of consciousness is, quote, "to me, the most profound mystery facing modern biology."
Optionally, you can also take quotes from experts who disagree with you, but out of context. So it looks like they agree with you on this. Like here, both Roger Penrose and Richard Dawkins are open atheists. But just take the right quotes with no accompanying context and you can make it seem like anyone agrees with it. And also, just make sure to try and humiliate Richard Dawkins at every chance you get. He is the reason why most people are atheists in the first place.
Even Richard Dawkins admits that the development of consciousness is, quote, "to me, the most profound mystery facing modern biology."
Even Richard Dawkins admits.
Admits, yes. Make him taste defeat. Anyway. Now here's the thing, even though most people navigate this world mostly by gut feeling, they like to think that they're smart and use logic to derive conclusions because smartness is a desirable trait. Who wouldn't want to be the next Einstein? Now how can you exploit this? By claiming that you go by facts and not feelings. By making your motto, facts don't care about feelings. That's why I say that Ben is one of the goats of using this technique, because his audience will not only feel reassured with what Ben is saying, but they'll also feel like they're the smart ones. I've left a free audio link to the entire episode so you can judge for yourself how little evidence and facts he actually uses and how much he relies on these outdated arguments and appeals to emotion and appeals to intuition to assert what he does. So why do people go by feelings and not facts? Because using logic all the time is too resource intensive and hence is too costly and too inefficient for our brains. You should read this book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Khaneman and you'll be a master of what Ben does. The book describes the vast amount of psychological research that has led to his conclusions about human thinking. We basically evolved to delegate most of our decision making to the emotional part of our brains because emotional decisions are quick and efficient, like judging social cues or running away from what scares you or judging if what you're seeing, what you're observing fits in your worldview. The catch is that this sort of thinking can easily fall prey to logical fallacies and biases and general erroneous thinking. But who cares about all this when all that matters is how much they're willing to pay for a subscription to your conservative platform. I hope this lesson was very useful to you if you're looking to follow in the footsteps of Ben Shapiro. Always remember, if you like this sort of content, you can always support me through these options. I'm also looking to make a lot of money and then learn from Ben Shapiro on how to not pay taxes on it. These are all the wonderful people who have already taken a step in that right direction. If you like this video, be sure to watch all the videos in this series. You can start with this one on how to win debates like Jordan Peterson. I hope to see you in the next lesson. Till then, remember, science is dope.